Okay, so we're about to dive into one of the most baffling, truly disturbing mysteries of the internet age, and that is the death of Elisa Lam. What started out as, a pretty standard missing person case in Los Angeles, well, it spiraled into this massive story. It's got chilling details, a viral video that honestly haunted millions, and questions, so many questions that we still don't have answers for today.
So let's just get right into it. The story really kicks off with something, well, unsettling is putting it lightly. For 19 straight days, guests at the Cecil Hotel were complaining. Things like, hey, the water pressure is super low, or the water, it tastes kind of weird, almost sweet. Some even said it was coming out of the tap looking dark. Little did they know, the reason for all this was something straight out of a horror movie.
All right, so that brings us to February 19th, 2013, a shocking discovery. After almost 3 weeks of these complaints piling up, the hotel finally decides, okay, we should probably check this out. They sent a maintenance worker up to the roof to take a look at the huge water tanks up there. So the guy they sent up was a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez. He climbs this ladder to the top of one of these massive 1,000-gallon tanks. And right away, something just feels off. The lid, which is supposed to be super heavy and sealed tight, was actually open just a little bit. So naturally, he grabs his flashlight and peers inside.
And what he found, it is literally the stuff of nightmares. Inside that tank, floating in the dark water, was the naked body of a young woman. It was quickly identified as 21-year-old Elisa Lam, a Canadian tourist who'd been missing for, you guessed it, 19 days.
So this is the big question, right? How on earth does a university student from Vancouver end up dead in a water tank on top of an LA hotel? To even start to unpack that, we've got to go back and figure out who was Elisa Lam.
Well, Elisa was a 21-year-old student at the University of British Columbia. She was the daughter of Chinese immigrants, and she was super creative. She had this personal blog on Tumblr where she wrote about everything she was into, fashion, art, literature, but she was also incredibly open about her personal struggles. And one of those struggles was her diagnosis with bipolar disorder, which, as you'll see, becomes a really significant factor in this whole thing.
Yeah, her writing really gives you a window into her mind. It's often really deep, very reflective. She once wrote, "You are always haunted by the idea that you're wasting your life." That really captures that kind of anxiety and hope that so many young people feel, that drive to find your place in the world. So in January of 2013, she kicks off this solo trip that she called her West Coast adventure. It sounded amazing. She started in San Diego, visiting the zoo, posting pictures, and then on January 26th, she makes her way to Los Angeles and checks into the Cecil Hotel. Now, she had promised her parents, who were, understandably worried, that she would call them every single day, and she did, until January 30th. That was the last call. The next day, January 31st, she was gone.
And where she vanished from, the Cecil Hotel. This is a huge part of the story. We have to talk about this place because this is not just some random, budget hotel. It has an incredibly dark and twisted past. Okay, first off, it's located right in the middle of LA's Skid Row, which is already a pretty dangerous area. But the hotel itself, it's like a magnet for tragedy. We're talking dozens of suicides and murders. It was even a temporary home for not one but two serial killers, Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, and Jack Underweger. Get this, one former manager claimed that in her 10 years working there, about 80 people died in the hotel. 80! Just let that sink in. So when Elisa first checked in, she was in a shared room. But her roommates, they pretty quickly complained to the front desk about what they called her strange behavior. Apparently she was leaving them weird notes, so the hotel moved her into her own private room. And that happened on January 30th, the very same day she made her last call to her parents. After that, nothing. Just silence. Now, we get to maybe the most famous and definitely the most haunting piece of evidence in this entire case, the elevator video. The LAPD released this 4-minute CCTV clip, and it went viral for a reason. It is bizarre. You see Elisa get into an elevator, and she starts pushing a bunch of the buttons. Then she's peeking out into the hall like she's looking for someone or maybe hiding from someone. At one point, she actually hides in the corner of the elevator. Then she steps out and starts making these really strange, almost fluid hand gestures. It's impossible to tell what she's doing. And then she just walks away. The whole time, the elevator doors just stayed open until she leaves, and then they finally close.
This is the last known sighting of Elisa Lam. So after that video dropped, the internet just exploded. Everybody was talking about this case. Then, weeks later, her body is found and the world is just waiting for an explanation. It took a few months, but eventually the LA County Coroner's Office released their official findings. And the official ruling was an accidental death. That's it. The coroner determined it was an accidental drowning, and they specifically pointed to her bipolar disorder as a major contributing factor. So here's what the autopsy showed. There were no signs of trauma, no sexual assault, nothing like that. They also didn't find any illegal drugs in her system, but what they did find was that the prescription meds she was supposed to be taking for her bipolar disorder, the levels were really, really low. This suggested she might have stopped taking them or at least wasn't taking them properly. So the official theory became that this likely triggered a severe manic episode, which would totally explain that bizarre behavior we all saw in the elevator video. So case closed, right? An open and shut tragedy. Well, not so fast. For the millions of internet sleuths following this case, the official explanation, it just didn't sit right. It left way more questions than answers. And this is where things get really murky. These are the questions that keep this mystery alive. Like, how did she even get up to the roof? The hotel staff swore it was locked and had an alarm. And okay, let's say she did. How did she then climb a 10-foot-tall water tank and lift a super heavy 20-pound lid all by herself, especially if she was in the middle of a manic episode? And don't even get me started on the elevator video. People have pointed out that about 53 seconds seem to be missing. Was it tampered with? And one last thing, her phone was never, ever found. Where did it go? You see, all these unanswered questions just fueled this absolute firestorm of theories online. It's actually kind of wild. If you look at the prevailing theories, the official accident explanation is only held by about a quarter of people who follow the case. 40% think it was straight up murder. Others think it was something paranormal, given the hotel's creepy history. And then you've got conspiracy theories on top of that. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, it does. There are all these bizarre coincidences that you just can't ignore. For one, the whole situation is shockingly similar to the plot of a 2005 horror movie called Dark Water. Get this, at the exact same time, there was a tuberculosis outbreak near the hotel, and the name of the test they were using was the Lam ELISA test. I'm not kidding. And maybe the strangest of all, she visited a bookstore called The Last Bookstore. The postal code for that store, if you look it up on a map, points right to her burial site. I mean, what do you even do with that? So here we are, over a decade later, and we're left right back where we started. Was this just a heartbreaking accident? A tragic result of a young woman's battle with mental illness? Or is there something much, much darker going on? A secret the Cecil Hotel has managed to keep hidden all these years? The official story is one thing, but the truth? The truth might just be something we'll never know.